when justice meets mediocrity or hypocrisy. We are living in times whereby you sit and ask yourself, is there justice anymore? Or is justice made for the rich, for the famous, for those who have a bigger following, or those who have no voice are silenced? We live in times whereby we are hearing heinous and cases that send shivers down your spine. And despite all the evidence and reports presented, you will still a debate. Either the question about the victim will be, what was the victim's age? What was their gender? What was their religion? What was their race? What was their ethnicity? What was their belief system? But they forget that this is a victim. How on earth does any of that really matter? Then move to the perpetrator. What was the same things? And then people make a met and say, no, it has to have been this. If it's a lady who was, something has happened to her, what was her dress code? Where was she? What was she doing? And some questions leave you questioning, where are we going with all this? Because if it's a woman, for example, you have women in your life. It could be a sister, it could be a mother, it could be a cousin, it could be, let's say, a neighbor. Maybe they're close to you. So would you want the same merit to be placed? If you look at, for example, let's say it's an accident, the debate will be what type of a car hit the victim or was involved in the accident. What type of a car? Let's say the victims, if they are riders, were they riders? Was it a pedestrian? Was it a cyclist? Was it this? Was it that? Was it this? And then you're scratching your head and thinking, where did we reach in humanity whereby your value of justice is dependent on a particular criteria? That criteria will then depend on if you are actual victim or you're faking to be a victim, despite all facts and evidence relaying that you are a victim. And here we have a very sad situation whereby the trend becomes, we keep seeing we keep seeing many of the perpetrators. We'll watch documentaries, we'll hear stories about how evil and all the things they had to do, even getting some quite cringy to what was the criteria for choosing their victim. But where is the story of the victim? Because what happened to the victim? They were chosen by this evil person, harmed, neglected, lives destroyed. They are alive, but emotionally, mentally, psychologically, spiritually, digitally drained. But we don't hear their story. We don't know their story. And so it becomes quite hypocritical because these are victims, but we don't know their story. A young child who's been harmed, what protection was done to that child after the incidents? Children who have been trafficked, what happened to them? Men and women who have been victims of this, what happens to their story? Their story becomes silenced. You know what? Because society decided, you're not that important, you're not that viral, you're not that so valuable. And so the victims become many and more doors are open. Look at how news media, whether is mainstream media or even independent journalists, when they're giving a story about a victim, so someone will hear the headline being a man, a man of this particular age, ABCD happened to them, or a man of this particular religion, something happened to them. Mind you, they are victims. Or a lady of this gender or this, you're thinking, hold up, hold up, hold up. Do we need the next information? It's either a man, it's a woman, it's a child. Simple. Can we pick it as that being mankind? That's a human, and give them the dignity they deserve. Because we're in a place whereby dignity is being eroded, integrity is being eroded, and justice is being silenced. And so we are having more victims in society. Not many can open their mouth, because they tried. Some have done everything. They have even gone to court. They have everything. But they sit there and hear most of these perpetrators are getting appeals. And despite the crimes being very messed up, they're getting crazy appeals. Their sentences are being reduced. Others can be moved to house arrest. Others can be told because of the time they served, they'll be released in a particular time. The victim is left to now watch over their back because they know if this person is going to be released, they are not safe. They are not safe anywhere. And so justice has become the most scary gamble in life. Justice because now, because of being a victim, nobody gets to hear your story, because your story can be, and sadly, should your story get politicized, you're cooked. Because now, by the time people say it is this side of the political wing or that side of the political wing, nobody's going to listen. Like the current cases that we are hearing about, things happening to little children, you're left scratching your head and thinking, hold up. So we have the perpetrators who are being given lenient sentences, and then you have people who are being accused of being perpetrators who have no clue. For example, someone who saw a child and was helping, and there's no one who was helping, not him noticing or being aware that this child, yes, the child was in danger, but the child was set as a trap, as an allure by a family or by someone who has ill intention. Or these children were running from a perpetrator and you happen to be the one near them and you want to assist, but this perpetrator, because corruption talks, is able to twist the narrative, and with a defense lawyer on their end or a criminal lawyer on their end, you cooked because it can be twisted. I remember there's a time I was in court, and I think that's when I came to understand why cops like to do this extrajudicial, because I came to see in court how a case can be twisted until I scratched my head. I have seen guys who are criminals, like they're the scared, like you see and hear a case of someone who's been convicted and their case is so scary. Like the things they've done makes you, I mean, you're thinking, whoa. And I remember in this particular case, I was called in, there's a case we were doing an inquiry, and around me, I thought the guys sitting around me, they were all like normal, like we are all like presenting different cases. And I remember I was there by 8 a.m. Well, I mean, by the time the course starts, 8:30, I think. By the time we were clocking 4:30, me and the guys, we are older guys around me, were looking at each other and thinking, hold up, are you telling me that we were the only people who were innocent in this room and everyone in this room was guilty? And when you look at those faces, I can tell you for free, you could not suspect any one of them to do any level of crime. I recall in one case, a cop, he literally was in the right in how he had done his process. But I remember how one guy who was literally the crime he committed had offed several people. But the way he twisted it, I remember the cop reaching to his side. Then he realized he didn't have a gun. I saw it with my own eyes. I was like, whoa. We almost witnessed a shootout right in the court. Then you sit with yourself and you're thinking, what about the victims? And I remember there are times some victims were in the same court and they'll have to go through trauma again. And I'll ask myself, my God. And I'll see the guys who've done the crime just smile. And I'll see the victims just sit there and the families. And some of these were victims of people being offed. Then you come back and life and ask yourself, what happens to the story of the victim? Or what happens to that little boy, little girl who's been done stuff by their own family? And is society going to save them? Society going to throw them back to the wolves? What's happening to the victims who are being taken advantage of by the so-called religious leaders who take advantage of their clock, especially in a time like this where there are many youth events or teen events? Many children sadly are falling into victims because as they go to some of these camps, these people take advantage, and some of these children will not even know if they are being laced or anything. And when they come and tell their story, some parents sadly don't take time to listen to their children because they're so good at staying on their phone, so terrible at listening to their child's story. And the children become re-victimized. And they're sitting there thinking, who's going to tell the story of the young one? Who's going to tell the story of that young lady? Who's going to tell the story of that young man? Because we are living in a time whereby Justice is put on one merit. Does it suit a particular narrative? And so victims are left without a voice. But the perpetrators have the whole following behind them. They have all the documentaries, they have all the journalists, they have all the views, they have all everything. But victims are left to carry a cross that was never meant to them. So the question is, for how long do we continue this narrative? Is it until you become a victim, then you open your eyes and see there's a problem? And then the real stories need to be told. Don't silence the victims, give them their voice.